What's going on? Welcome back. It's Wednesday night. Welcome back to Off the Schneid. We're doing some drafts. It's Masters week, so if you want to chat about the Masters in the chat, drop your questions, drop anything in there. Love me some golf. Definitely play a lot more golf DFS than pretty much anything else. Right there with football, to be honest with you, but. Either way, let's get to it. We're going to do some drafting tonight, maybe one or two drafts. I have 7 more bullets left in the big board. Let's jump into Underdog. So you can see 143. All my slows are done, which is nice. It's a good feeling. My slows are all completed. Maxed out the biggest board, maxed out the little board. I'm not going to play the little board too. It's just a little bit of a rush. I mean, it's pretty easy to get that. It's only a max 20, but I just don't feel the need sitting here with, 173 drafts before the NFL draft. That's pretty sick, to be honest with you. So I think that's enough. So I'm not going to go with the little board too, but we're definitely going to finish out maxing out this big board and get ready for this draft. So 1 week from today, next Wednesday's episode, there'll be no drafting, but it'll be my mock draft, my live one time. I only do one mock draft that I release, to the world, to the YouTube universe. So I'm going to live stream it next week, Wednesday night, same time, same place, and we'll have some fun with that. So looking forward to that. That's my favorite episode of the entire year. But let's get into some drafting. So like I said, 7 bullets left. Maybe I'll take a quick peek at the exposures just to see what I kind of should shy away from or might need a little bit more of. Not much more than 30%. I like that. Ray Davis, maybe slow down. Marvin Mims is right where I want to be. Eric Gray, I will not draft again in these 7. Obviously, that's too high. That's way too high. I got a little aggressive. Not that I'm upset about it, to be honest with you. It's fine. It is a little high. Don't get me wrong. I wish it was more like 15%, but it is what it is. It'll finish around 21 or so by the end of this. And he's still not in a terrible spot, but he's got to make some moves and get some opportunity this year. So we'll see. Braylon, that's fine. No one else I really need to. Trey Burks, I don't need to draft again. So Trey Burks is off the list, as well as Eric Gray, maybe Marvin Mims. Everyone else, I think I'm okay. So not too worried about exposures, to be honest with you. Everything looks fairly in order. So let's jump in. If you guys want to draft with me, let's do it. 89% filled. There's about 20,000 more entries here, so there's tons of room. Only 7 left for me. Let's square this up here. There we go. Yeah, only 7 left for me, which I'll be done. I'll be done that probably by the end of this weekend here. And like I said, I got to get moving and finish up my mock draft. Where I think guys are going to go, we're right in the heat of lying season right now, and Drake May as well as Jaden Daniels are both visiting, or did both visit, the Commanders this week. And that's going to be basically where they make the decision, is after these 2 meetings. I think it's Jaden Daniels. I've been saying since, I don't know, at some point in the college season that Jaden Daniels needs to be number 2. Caleb Williams just is what it is. He's going to be number 1, and that's fine. But for me, Jaden Daniels might even be better than Caleb Williams. If I'm being honest with you, that's kind of how I feel about him. I really, really like Jaden Daniels. Not that I would, draft Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams if I'm the Chicago Bears. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just, fantasy wise, I think he's going to be very good with the Commanders. And if anyone's new to the show, new to the channel, I kind of have a conspiracy theory about Jaden Daniels with the, not a conspiracy theory, but with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders and Cliff Kingsbury specifically and the Raiders. So a lot of guys on the staff for the Las Vegas Raiders recruited and coached Jaden Daniels at Arizona State, right? So you would think they would want to go after Jaden Daniels, and I think that's not particularly a secret. Cliff Kingsbury visited with the Raiders. He was going to potentially be their offensive coordinator. He pulls out, goes to Washington, my feelings are that Cliff Kingsbury wants to coach Jaden Daniels, and the Raiders weren't going to be able to do it. The Commanders weren't going to trade out. The Patriots aren't going to trade out. It is what it is. We're not going to be able to get Jaden Daniels unless for some crazy ass reason he falls outside the top 3, which I do not see happening, period. And then there you go. So Cliff Kingsbury pulls out, goes to Washington, where he can then coach Jaden Daniels, and he's got some weapons there, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. And if they draft another wide receiver, they'll be in an okay spot. De'Ami Brown's still there as well, but it's De'Ami Brown. But that's my kind of conspiracy theory about the Commanders, about Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. I feel like he wants to coach Jaden Daniels. We'll see if it works out. That's what I think. I'll give you a little nugget for next week's episode. It's pretty much going to be Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and then we'll see. I've kind of always said the draft starts at 3, and realistically, it's between now 2 quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy and Drake May, and I still haven't ironed out exactly who I'm going to have the Patriots taking, but it's one of those 2 quarterbacks, and then we'll see what happens from there. So, yeah, a little bit of a, maybe you can skip the 2 picks next week for 1 and 2, because it's going to be Caleb and it's going to be Jaden Daniels. And I think that's a great fit. So for these big boards, last year in the big board, I was drafting CJ Stroud with a lot of Panthers, with Adam Thielens of the world and who else was in there? Terrace Marshall, a fair amount, which that one killed me. But either way, I was drafting CJ Stroud like he was going to the Panthers because I just thought there was no fucking way that they're going to pass up on CJ Stroud for Bryce Young. There was just no way. And then, we know what happened. It came about, and I had a lot of, Houston and Carolina stacks in my big board drafts, or my big board exposure, if you will. So, stuff like that can happen, but we're this close now and nothing's really changed for me. So I've been drafting Jaden Daniels like he's going to be on the Commanders, with a lot of Jahan Dotson, a lot of Terry McLaurin, a lot of Austin Eckler since he signed there. Just thinking that's where he's going to land, and it is what it is. So we'll see, and hopefully it works out. If not, I'll have a lot of exposure to Jaden Daniels on the Patriots and Washington Commanders. But we'll see. So it's gonna be exciting. I'm jacked up for this NFL draft. I think it's gonna be a wild one. I think it's gonna be a wild draft. A really, really interesting, really exciting. I think there's gonna be a fair amount of trades. I shouldn't say a lot of trades, but a fair amount. A good like 6 or 7, something like that. And we'll see how many quarterbacks end up going. If for me, Bo Nix is still ahead of Michael Penix. I just can't get over. Honestly, with Michael Penix, I just can't get over he's got a weird hitch throwing motion. I just can't get over it. He's gonna be too late in the NFL too often. That's how I see it. He was late a lot in college, but he got away with it with just straight up velo on his fastball, if you will. Like, he throws the ball fucking hard. He throws it really hard, and he knows it. It's a lot like Colin Kaepernick in that regard. And he can get away with it in college. He won't be able to get away with it in the NFL. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see where he goes. That's the biggest thing. Landing spots for Michael Penix. I mean, I don't know. To be honest with you, I think the best landing spot for Michael Penix is going to be Seattle. And he sits for a year behind Geno, and then eventually takes over as the starter, with his former head coach and now offensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks. That's where I think the perfect landing spot for him is. That's a quality trade down spot for the Seattle Seahawks. Right at 15, I think is where they're at. Trade back. Get some capital, and then draft your quarterback of the future that knows the offense, knows the coach, knows the area. You already have a built-in kind of fan base right there. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. Again, Bo Nix, I think, fits a lot more schemes, a lot more teams, a lot more offenses. I think he can fit in with the Broncos, the Raiders, the Vikings. I think he can fit in with all of these teams. Even, if the Rams want to take him and have him come in, back up Matt Stafford and be the heir apparent there, there's more options, I think. And to be honest with you, I think Bo Nix is more equipped to run an NFL offense than Michael Penix is. That's just how I see it. So we'll see it. We'll see how many quarterbacks get drafted. I think there's a lot of smoke around these quarterbacks. That's where I think the smoke is within this quarterback class. We'll see if JJ McCarthy actually is that guy. I personally never thought he was, quite him, but maybe he is. I could be completely wrong on that. I'm willing to admit that. That's for sure. But draft opens, 3-hole. It's a good spot. Don't think I recognize anybody in here that's typically in the chat. If you're in the chat and you're in the draft, put something in the comments. Let me know where you're at, and we'll feel it out from there. But I like being in the 3-hole. I might just bring up some Jamar Chase action here. I haven't drafted him in a long time, but we'll see if he's there. Either way, we'll see. That's where I think the smoke lies around this whole draft class, is within the quarterbacks. So we'll see. I mean, the top 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks, and if they're not, then that's a huge fireable mistake for any general manager in those 3, with those 3 teams and those 3 picks. Toast 0420. I like it. That's definitely Dennis. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the draft. 10-hole. We're far away from each other. I like to see that. We won't snipe each other, at least not early. Yeah, I'm going to bring in Jamar Chase here just because it's getting towards the end. Look behind you. I haven't drafted him in a while. Give me some Jamar Chase. Amon-Ra moves up. I don't know about that. There, but that's all right. If you need to increase your exposure, it is what it is. Big Wave Dave. That's a good name. I like that. A lot of non-badges here. I've seen a lot of badgeless drafters. There's an interesting one right there. Devon Achane in the first round, 6 overall. I was thinking about this yesterday or the other day about people that bring up, ADP like that. They bring up a second rounder into the first, which, okay, I understand you're trying to get unique. That's typically the goal there, is try to get unique. Okay, cool. But to be honest with you, the majority of winning teams I see, like last year, look at the Best Ball Mania winner. What did he have? The most common stack towards the end of the draft possible. CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then brought it back with Dak and whatever. He had the Dallas-Detroit stack. That was if not the one of the most common stacks in the entire Best Ball Mania, draft cycle last year. And that's what won. And that's what everybody that was in the finals, not literally everybody, but 80% of the teams in the Best Ball Mania finals had that stack. So realistically, I don't think it's early where you got to get unique. Just take stacks that make sense. In this case, there's no stacking. We don't know the schedule and everything like that. You could take team stacks, whatever, and conference stacks, division stacks. You can do shit like that, sure. But the reality is, early in these drafts, I don't think I'm not there yet. I haven't fully decided where I'm at with this conversation, but I don't know if it's necessary to try to get unique and do these crazy different things, thinking that you're going to have, a unique build. Because the reality is, it might not matter at all. You just eat that chalk along with everybody else, and then you get unique where you get unique. So, bringing up Sam Laporta here, obviously he's just trying to, have a unique team is what it looks like to me. And I'm not so sure I can get behind that early in first, second, third round of drafts. But what do I know? I might get a little different here. Go with a little Stephon Diggs. I haven't drafted him in forever, and not since he moved to Houston. So I'll give that a shot. See if I can build that out. And yeah, I'm fine. I would rather bring up guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, those types. That's where you can kind of get unique, especially if you think that there's closing line value there. If you think a guy's going to rise throughout the draft cycle, then that's where you should do that. Trey McBride very early in the draft season was, that guy sort of thing. I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors here. I do not have enough of him. And I think it's pretty likely that Neighbors might go to the Chargers. So we'll that's another story for a week from now and for another day. So tune in for the mock draft. I'm super excited for that episode. But I just don't think it's necessary to try to get cute, try to get unique in the first and second round. I just don't. Third, fourth, I don't think it's necessary. Fifth, sixth, 5th through 10, you want to bring guys up a full round? Be my guest. I cut it off at one full round. That's where I cut it off at 12 picks, at least until the 10th, 11th, maybe 12th round, something like that. At the earliest, I would say 10th round. That's where I cut it off. And it's pretty well known that that's what you should stick within. It's pretty well known. There's stats out there. Hayden Winks does a post almost every year about that exact subject. So again, up until the 12th round, I like to stay personally within 12 picks, within one round of ADP. That's why I don't make my own rankings, because I am an ADP hound. I'm sticking to ADP at least within 12 rounds. And then after that, I'll go nuts. I don't give a shit. If after the 12th round, after the 12th round, go nuts. Bring guys up, from ADP 200, pick them 140th. I don't care. Is to get your guys, get your stacks, do what you got to do. But up until then, I just don't think it's necessary. And I don't think it makes complete sense. So we'll see. Beverage of choice this evening. Cheers to everybody tuning in. Thanks for coming out. Beverage of choice tonight is an acai. It's a Japanese beverage. Very tasty, very clean. I like it. There you go. Cheers. What are we doing here? All right, let's get back to this draft. Try to pay attention to this a little bit. Tank Dell went earlier than I'd hoped. I was hoping to get him back at 46. I probably should have just went with him instead of Malik Neighbors, but not a big deal. Now I maybe just don't take CJ Stroud, which was kind of, on the menu, or I can and bring it back with Dalton Schultz, which is something I might do actually in this draft. We'll see. Definitely Dennis, AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley, DJ Moore, Jalen Hurts. I like it. I've done was he even there? Was he available to you to do that? I've done a full Philly stack. He was there, and maybe you would have got sniped on Hurts, but probably not. I've done a full Philly wrap stack, I call it, where I went Devontae Smith instead of DJ Moore, and I had first 4 picks were all Philadelphia Eagles. I've only done that once or twice, and I wouldn't recommend doing it a ton. But I wanted a little bit of exposure to that, just to kind of, I don't know, make things interesting. I think I have 2. I think I have 2 of my 150 with that start, and I think that's fine. Little sprinkle on that, just in case the Eagles are the number 1 offense in the NFL this year. Which, if you're telling me that's not possible, then we can't be friends, I guess. That it's certainly on the table that the Philadelphia Eagles are the number 1 offense in the NFL this year, especially with Kellen Moore coming in. So, yeah, I'm willing to take that shot once or twice just to see it get a little bit different. And that's, if you want to get unique, do something like that in the first 4 rounds. You want to get unique, take a full Philly stack for all 4 players and bring in Goddard. I don't give a shit. Just, that's how you can do some unique things, but that's just my 2 cents. Again, what do I know? I'm definitely going Stroud here. Bring him in with Stephon Diggs, and then I'll bring in Joe Burrow, and then I should be done at quarterback. Anyone that watches the show regularly, I like to cut it off at 2 quarterbacks, as long as they're, that caliber, which I do consider Stroud and Joe Burrow as, if you will. But let's pop back into this view. So what else do we got? Masters week It's Masters week. I don't know if everyone out there likes golf. I am a ridiculously large golf fan and golfer myself. Play more golf DFS than anything, except for actually it's probably more than football, to be honest with you, because it's a longer season for golf. So I probably play more DFS golf than anything, including football. So I'm excited for the Masters. Kicks off tomorrow. We'll see what the weather does. Fingers crossed they get a full round tomorrow, full round Friday, and then we can get into the weekend like normal. If anyone wants my Masters pick, gun to my head, one golfer to win, I like Joaquin Niemann to win the Masters. Fingers crossed, because I threw a hefty, fairly chunky bet on my guy Niemann. So he's won every other week on the Live Tour for the last, 6 tournaments, something like that. And he didn't win last week, took a little time off, came back solo 9th, goes into the Masters for the 4th time. He's improved every year for the last 3 years on his standing. Give me Joaquin Niemann. 26-1 as well as what the number that I got him at. And they got a little bet boost on there. So it's a nice little payout if Joaquin Niemann wins the Masters. That's my pick. Hey, look who we got. Pat, what's happening, man? Fantasy Dog Pound, thanks for coming in. Cheers. Cheers to everybody. Enough golf talk, unless you guys want it, but put it in the chat if you want some more golf talk. What do we got? What did this guy start doing? Devon Achane, Sam Laporta. Took my Tank Dell a little bit early. That's okay. George Pickens. So, yeah, he's clearly trying to get it a little bit unique. I just don't think that that's sound strategy. I really, really, really do not think that that's sound strategy. Again, you want to get unique. Go ahead and get unique in these rounds that we're in right now. You want to bring it at 70. If I'm bringing up a guy who's ADP 82, 80, whatever in that range, absolutely, that's something that you can do. But I just don't think it's necessary whatsoever, especially in these early big boards. I really do not think it's necessary whatsoever. Like I was saying before, the most common stack was the stack that you needed in Best Ball Mania last year. So, and then he snipes me on Joe Burrow. Maybe he's just here to snipe. That's cool. Well, that's how she goes, I guess. I guess I'm going to go Alvin Kamara, bring in a running back. Brundeezy 9, just here for the snipes. Maybe he's watching and he's upset that I'm saying his strategy makes no sense and it's not in any way optimal. But who knows? Let's go Alvin Kamara here. I still think he's certainly a viable option. Not that it's the end of the world that I've got 2 Cincinnati Bengal receivers without their quarterback. That's certainly not the end of the world. I might put a little more focus on some AFC teams and options as we move forward, especially AFC North. But we'll see how it falls. That'll only be my kind of tiebreaker. I'm not going to hold myself to it. Could bring in DeAndre Hopkins. David Montgomery's on the table. Nice floor play. And to be honest, like the floor, well, it's a high floor play, I should say. He's 60 yards, 2 touchdowns as a ceiling. Or it's D-Hop. I think I'm good at wide receiver. I like to bring in running backs, as everybody knows. David Montgomery, you're welcome to the team. Brundeezy 9, let's see what he gets up to. Nothing as far as any sort of correlation is concerned, so that's interesting. Not really sure what he's doing. Red badge too, so you'd expect a little more. I would expect a little more personally, but that's all right. To each their own. You got to do different things. Let's get unique, whatever. That's how she goes. What else do we got here? Mike Williams. Is that a reach? It is. Yeah, 14 picks up. Jeez. I am not buying Mike Williams whatsoever. I have 0% Mike Williams. Anyone that watches the show a fair amount, I take some hard stands. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. For instance, last year, I had a 0% Tony Pollard, complete full fade Tony Pollard. That worked out perfectly, looked like a genius. I also had 0% full fade Breece Hall. Looked like an idiot. That was a terrible decision. So, I take hard stances and sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. I'm taking a hard stand against Mike Williams on that MetLife Stadium, torn ACL central, torn Achilles central. I'm not taking a guy that's injury prone going to that sort of a situation, coming off a torn ACL. Just not for me. And I think it's almost 100% that the Jets draft either Brock Bowers or my hope would be Rome Odunze. So that's who I think they're bringing in. And then what does that do to Mike Williams' value? To me, it absolutely tanks it, in my opinion. So there you go. I mean, if Rome Odunze is on the Jets, where does Mike Williams' ADP fall to? Let's take a quick gander here. You taking him over Tyler Lockett? Not a chance, in my opinion. I'm not. Gabe Davis, depends on if they bring in a wide receiver. We'll see. Khalil Shakir, again, depends on if they bring in a wide receiver. To me, he probably falls in right around here, the low 130s, high 120s. So 2 full rounds from where he's at right now. So what I was talking about earlier with that closing line value, yeah, if you think a guy's going to rise, then go ahead and reach for him, pull him up. That's fine. If you think he's going to rise, pull him up the draft board. Totally fine with that. But if I have any sort of thought that he might fall, I will take him off my draft board completely. And that's where I'm at with Mike Williams. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with old Mike Will, but he's not for me. I'll tell you that much. Xavier Worthy certainly on the table. Caleb Williams goes before Dak. Hard to stomach that one. Is this guy going to take Dak Prescott? How do I not? A full 14 picks past ADP? I don't even care that I already have Stroud. These guys already have tight end. How likely is it that they take their second tight end? Pretty silly of this guy to take Jake Ferguson with CeeDee Lamb when he's already got Baltimore. Oh, that's George Kittle. That's okay. But yeah, I'm going to take Dak for sure. Make it look like an auto pick. A little sneaky. Make it look like an auto pick. And there he does. Oh, okay, that's fine. Dalton Kincaid, Jake Ferguson. I'm not sure that makes a ton of sense. I guess there's no wide receivers. You don't want to take a running back. Okay. I'm fine with taking a naked Dak. We'll see. What do we got here? I think I got to go with my guy Zamir. Now I wish I didn't take Dak and I would bring in Austin Eckler and do the old Washington stack I was talking about. I have no 49ers. I'll take Zamir White, I guess. I don't really like that pick. Not particularly happy with that. Putt Daddy, what's up, man? Welcome to the chat. Thanks for popping in. Ran through 20 drafts on the little board past 2 days. Shaking my head at a lot of picks. Yeah, that's what I was saying. A lot of madness on Pat's show the other day or the other week. I was saying in the chat that, man, it's wild out there. I mean, look at this draft. Look at this draft here. Devon Achane goes in the first round. 6 overall, right? Sam Laporta up to 19. These, and usually it's badge-less drafters, so I was thinking maybe this guy here or Big Wave Dave, maybe, you never know, might do some crazy stuff. But yeah, it's not limited to the badge-less bros. It's getting, the streets are pretty wild right now, to be honest with you. It's a good time to draft. I wish I had more bullets. After this, I'll only have 6. And if I do another draft after this, I'm down to 5, and I'll be done in the next day or two or a couple days. Definitely by the end of the weekend, I'll be done. Which is kind of, and I'm not going to do the little board too. Again, I'm just not, there's no real need. I'm at 107. I'll be at 173 drafts before the NFL draft. That's enough, sickness within me. I just don't think it's necessary, but it is a good time to take advantage of these streets. There's some weak drafters out there and some weak pods, some weak rooms, but, I'm not going to force it. To be honest, even though there is seems like some value, some EV, some juice there. But yeah, the rooms are wild. What are we doing here? I haven't been paying enough attention to this draft. It's kind of getting away from me. I don't really love how my team looks. I'm gonna be done at quarterback. Obviously, I'll probably bring it back with like Jalen Tolbert, who I don't despise as a 20th round pick when I'm not going to have a completely naked Dak Prescott. I'm done at quarterback though. I'm just not going to bring in a third. It makes no sense to do so. Running back room's looking good. Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Malik Neighbors, T. Higgins definitely need to catch up a little bit at wide receiver, but personally, I think I'm okay. If I had gotten Joe Burrow, Chase Brown would have been on the table. I am going to take a little bit of a risk here, and I have been doing this in my last few drafts, or I may or may not, we'll see, but I have been drafting Troy Franklin a little bit more with the feeling that if the Bills stay at 28, he is certainly on the table for them. I know he's met with them. I know he's visited with the Bills, and that's very much within the wheelhouse of what they would be looking for in a wide receiver. At least that's what I think, especially with the connection there. So I don't mind Gabe Davis whatsoever here either, but I'm going to gamble a little bit, especially considering I don't love this team, if I'm being honest with you, but I'm going to gamble a little bit that Troy Franklin ends up on the Buffalo Bills and take him here. So we'll see. If I'm right about that, cool. If I'm wrong about that, it's not the end of the world either, right? So he's still a quality looking rookie. I was drafting him. I kind of fell in love and then out of love completely for a bit there with Troy Franklin. So I kind of do need the exposure, I guess. I shouldn't say I need it. I'm probably at like 10 to 12%, something like that. So I feel like I need to boost it a little bit. Man, if Austin Eckler's still there, geez, I have not been paying enough attention. Did Dalton Schultz go already? Someone reach for Dalton Schultz? Fucking, what do you know? This guy is like just here to snipe me, obviously. Interesting. Just makes no sense what you're doing here, pal, but okay. Oh, I'm on the clock. That's good to know. Austin Eckler I would have taken, and I'm still just going to bring in Gabe Davis. There you go. No harm, no foul. Can still get Gabe Davis. And I feel like I'm completely caught up at wide receiver now. Certainly caught up. But there you go. Yeah, these draft boards. Brundeezy 9, just here to snipe. Sweet, man. Good strategy. It just doesn't make a lot of sense what you're doing here, pal, but that's all right. That's okay. We'll make it work. We will make it work. There's another guy I'm taking a hard stand on is Jonathan Brooks this year. At least, yeah, this year. and especially at least in the early big board drafts. I have 0%, not a single exposure or draft with Jonathan Brooks in it. I don't have a single share. That's the word I was searching for there. I don't have a single Jonathan Brooks share. Why? Tore his ACL. Everybody knows that, right? That's not a secret, not breaking news, but you're expecting a rookie running back to come in and, learn the playbook, earn playing time, get on the field, get up to speed as a rookie, never played in the men's league before, right? To get there. I just don't personally see it as a rookie. If I'm wrong about Jonathan Brooks, I highly doubt I'm going to be as wrong as I was about Brees Hall, So I'm not too worried about it. And everybody's just penciling him into the Cowboys. Oh, he did their surgery. He did his surgery. Then he has to go there. Why? Why? You know where he played? Do you know where he played college football? Right? What? Just because they did his surgery doesn't mean that they're drafting him now. Yes, they need a running back. Yes, they certainly could draft Jonathan Brooks. But there's a lot of comparable running backs in this year's draft class. It's not like Jonathan Brooks is head and shoulders the RB1. He's not Brees Hall with the torn ACL. He's not he's not Bijan Robinson with the torn ACL. He's not Brees Hall before he tore his ACL. He's not even Brees Hall after he tore his ACL, right? So yes, he might be RB1 in this class, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, right? He's not that caliber of a player, at least in my opinion. If that's the way you see it, then good on you. Like that's completely fine. And I could be completely wrong. You always have to leave room for that. So maybe that is a possibility, but I just don't see it. And I'm kind of out on him as a rookie. I'm very confident that a year from now, 1 year to the day from now, I will probably be hammering Jonathan Brooks, especially if he has the sort of rookie season that I think he's going to have. Then I'll be even higher on him. He'll be going, 4, 5 rounds later than he is now. And I'll be able to smash him at a bargain. We'll see. Do I take Brandon Cooks here? Pair up with Dak? I could definitely do that. It would make a lot of sense. If Jalen Wright's there, I'll be taking Jalen Wright. He is probably my RB1. And even if Jonathan Brooks was healthy, I might be saying something like that. Jalen Wright is a quality looking running back. That's for sure. Big play potential. My comp, this is funny to me. My comp for Jalen Wright was, if you've seen the movie The Longest Yard, you remember Meggett, the running back, Nelly? That's who he reminded me of. If you haven't seen that movie, go watch the movie and then watch Jalen Wright highlight tape and tell me you don't see some Meggett in there. That's what I see. But I digress. What do we got here? We got lots of options. Charbonnet was on the table. I don't think I need Jahan Dotson here. My exposure is more than fine. I'm a little high on my Marvin Mims. So let's bring in Xavier Legette. Could go Marshawn Lloyd, but he is my most exposed, my most owned, my most drafted player, period. So I definitely don't need to go that far. But let's go Xavier Legette, a guy that I've always liked since watching his tape. Big fan of Xavier Legette. Need to get some tight ends, but I'll definitely be going 3 tight ends, obviously, in this build. So it's almost certainly going to be a 2-6-9-3. Does that work? Yeah, 2-6-9-3, I think is what it's going to be. I could even go 2-7-8-3. That might be it. We'll see. I like to figure out what I'm doing beforehand. Know where I'm going, know what I'm getting, and taking it from there. So Drake May, Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy, sure. Kirk Cousins. Definitely Dennis. Let's check it out. AJ Brown, Saquon, DJ Moore, Jalen Hurts. You got the Philly stack. I like it. Trey McBride, fantastic pick. Brian Thomas, love it. I'm not a James Conner guy. Kind of never have been. You know, I'll leave it at that. I'm just not a huge James Conner guy. I think for some reason he gets a pass for being old and dusted, like people always like to say about running backs. For some reason, I think James Conner just gets a pass on that, which I think is strange. Doesn't really make sense to me, but not a bad pick considering, you know, clearly a bit of a hero running back build with Saquon, bringing James Conner, and then Kyler with the Trey McBride stack. I don't hate that, and that makes a ton more sense. To be honest with you, I'd probably rather have James Conner than I would Michael Wilson, who you did bring in as well, I see. Yeah, not sure that's necessary, but I don't mind it. Dontavion Wicks, I don't mind that pick. I like sprinkling in some Dontavion. Yeah, I have a little bit, probably call it 6% to Dontavion Wicks, and I don't mind that. Tajay, no one wants to draft. I'm perfectly fine with that because he's totally still viable. He's absolutely, especially he has more value than a handcuff or a backup running back. He's got standalone value for sure, in my opinion. Did he need to fall from where he was at in like the 60s? Of course, absolutely. But this is fine where he's at right here. I would take him over Jonathan Brooks, that's for sure. And realistically, yeah, that's where he belongs. You know, right there with Tony Pollard, but falls behind Nick Chubb, Brian Robinson. I'm fine with that. Ahead of Jonathan Brooks, absolutely. And then some of these other guys you can make a case for, but Chuba Hubbard, that was good value there. Chase Brown, that's good value there, but not a bad squad at all. Tyler Algier, maybe the best or one of the better handcuffs, and he's a bit of a value. I think he's gone up draft boards or ADP wise in the last 2-3 weeks. Josh Palmer, at least you're getting a player. I will definitely be taking Cade Otton if he's there. If he goes, probably Antonio Gibson. Maybe up my exposure to Roschon. Hopefully I can get Cade Otton and one of those two running backs. But I definitely need a higher floor. There goes Roschon. It's a quality pick. I need a higher floor tight end as my tight end one sort of thing. They're all going to basically be the same, be pretty interchangeable. I could wait. Okonkwo, Noah Fant, Jatavian Sanders are all there. One of those three or two of those three will be on my roster, hopefully for sure. I'm not, I wouldn't take Mike Gesicki anyways with these two Bengals pass catchers without the quarterback. So I'm definitely not taking Mike Gesicki. But I think with Tanner Hudson coming back and with what he did last year, I don't think it's wise to just say that Mike Gesicki is going to get all the tight end work for the Bengals. I really don't think it's wise. I think he was perfectly fine when you're getting him in the 20th round with your last pick. Perfectly fine. And to be honest, I mean, it's not the end of the world, I guess, anyways. This is basically the same thing. So I guess I shouldn't mention that. That really has nothing to do with it. But I just think there's better options in that range of tight end. I think Noah Fant, those three that I mentioned, I think are all better options, in my opinion, than Mike Gesicki. So definitely be going Antonio Gibson here. I think he's got a fair amount of value. Standalone, good pass catching back. He's also quite large, so he can get it done at the goal line. So I'm fine with that. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. Helps the channel, helps me. Helps me keep making content, keeps me motivated, that sort of thing. And again, come back next week, next Wednesday, same time, same place as always, for the 2024 OTS Mock Draft 1.0. Super excited for that. Put in a lot of work for that. So we'll see if We'll see how true or how close I can get and if people like it. But fingers crossed. All right, where are we at? Where are we at here? Jalen Hyatt gets moved up a fair amount. That's interesting. Big Wave Dave. Not really sure why. Not particularly necessary. One thing I've noticed with badgeless drafters, guys that you think might be a little bit more novice, I'll say that gently, not that, I'm not an expert over here. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. But you see a lot of running backs early with these you would perceive as a more novice drafter. Not that he is or certain people are or whatever. I'm just saying you see a lot of early running back drafting with badgeless drafters because that's a redraft, type of a tendency where running backs are the first 8 picks, or at least it used to be, a few years ago. And to be honest, it is sort of still a thing. It's not really conducive to winning money in best ball, as we all know, depending on the draft and depending on the season. I think if you are going to get away with it, it is in these big boards. So I'm not upset with this, to be honest with you. But I think that that's the time to do it is right now. If you do want to invest early in running back, now's the time to do it. In the regular season, best ball mania draft cycle after the NFL draft, I think it's going to shift a little bit as it always does. And there's 2 less rounds as well. So that's where it becomes more important to focus in on the wide receivers. I think that's at least what I think. I'm not sure what the rosters look like for the last few years for the big board winners. But I'd be willing to wager that they had a relatively strong running back room. Obviously, you got to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing, especially in these big board drafts where, it's a long time until the season starts. So you got to kind of get lucky on the health front, to be honest with you. But it is, I would say that you need to have a fairly strong running back room that goes deep. Let's see what we're doing here. I like my wide receiver room, so I don't think I'm falling behind or anything like that. I definitely need tight end help. I do need, I think I only need one more wide receiver. So I think I'm just going to double tap tight end here. I'm not entirely sure why JT Sanders hasn't risen up or stayed where he was. I think he's fallen, if my memory serves me correctly, in the last kind of few weeks, which doesn't particularly make sense to me. Let's go this route because he's looking more and more like he's going to be a second round pick as far as buzz and just visits and things like that indicate teams are interested. And if teams are interested, especially in a weak tight end class, which this most certainly is, it's super top heavy. And by top heavy, I mean there's only 2 that are, real viable fantasy options this year. And that's obviously Brock Bowers. And then JT Sanders is there, might be able to give you a Dalton Kincaid type of rookie season. At least that's kind of how I see him. He's a big slot type of tight end, similar to Kincaid. And if he can get you there, then, that's going to up his value for sure. Especially in the NFL draft. Once Bowers goes in the top 15, let's call it picks, JT Sanders' value is going to kind of shoot up because there's no one else, more or less. There's a bunch of other guys you could take in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, whatever. But again, realistically, it's Brock Bowers, JT Sanders, and pretty much everybody else. So I think that Jatavian Sanders is going to end up being a second round pick in this year's NFL draft. And then, have some fantasy value from there. So I'm not really sure why he's dropping. That just doesn't particularly make sense to me. Last year's winner had my boy James Conner on his team. Was that in Best Ball Mania or was that in the big board? I'd be more inclined to take James Conner in Best Ball Mania than I would in the big board. I want to see what they do in the draft. And I want to make sure, I want to know, yeah, BBM, that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I would take James Conner in Best Ball Mania. I want to know what they do in the draft, and I want to know that James Conner's healthy. James Conner's been fairly injury prone. He's missed games every year. Yes, he could get hurt, come back, and then kill it in the playoffs, which he's done, more than once, I think, in his career so far. Gets hurt in the middle, 7th through 10th week or something like that. Week 6 through week 11 or something. He gets hurt, and then he comes back and he crushes it in the fantasy playoffs, which, yes, he's done multiple times. But he could also get hurt and be done for the season, or get hurt at the end of the season and be out for the fantasy playoffs, right? So I just think James Conner is a little too fragile. Plus, he's getting older. And again, for some reason, he's avoided this dusty old running back label that everyone else gets. So I don't know why he's impervious to this label that everybody likes to give running backs. And not that I do, because I don't give them that label, depending on who it is and depending on their age. But I'm just, in these early drafts, I think there's better options than James Conner in his range. After these picks, we'll take a look where he went. I'm done at tight end. I'm done at quarterback. I've got 3 picks, I think. Yeah, 3 picks. So I'm going 2 running backs and 1 wide receiver. 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver. Wow, running backs are getting thin. And I might just take Michael Carter, considering everything we've just been talking about. I think Michael Carter is perfectly viable. But before then, I'm going to take a little Malik Washington action. I think that makes sense here. 1, 2, 3 rookies. Yeah. Malik Washington makes sense here. Finally, everybody's on board with Jermaine Burton, Javon Baker. Those are my 2 favorite 19th, 20th round wide receivers. And I have a massive amount of exposure to those 2. So I can't get them there anymore. 18th, 19th, 20th round, but Malik Washington's still there. Sometimes you can get Javon Baker and Burton. Sometimes you can get them 18th, maybe 19th round. So now I'm done at wide receiver. So 2 running backs. Give me a little Michael Carter action, and then we'll see where we're at here. Maybe I bring in a Blake Watson, one of my guys. Yeah, let's take a look at where he went. 42% Carter. I think that Carter. Oh, Michael Carter. Interesting. 42%. That's a stand. That's a heavy stand on a guy like Michael Carter, who I do really like. I really like Michael Carter as a player. I thought that was a mistake by the Jets to let him go. I think he's the type of player that forces his way onto the field. And I think he can force his way on the field even with a healthy James Conner on the Arizona Cardinals. And if James Conner is not healthy, then I really like Michael Carter. So I'm gonna take him here. Again, considering all the James Conner hate I was just dishing out. 42% is a stand. That's a heavy stand. Not that I don't like it. Not that I don't, I'm not going to say I hate it, because it's a 19th, 20th round pick, more likely a 20th round pick. So I always say, I was saying, I think last week, the week before, I always say, right? If you're gonna take it, the stands that you're gonna take are gonna be on late round guys. Pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to get 42% of any first round pick, of any second round pick, of any third round pick. If you're bringing up a fourth, fifth round guy into the third, fourth round, then you can up that exposure to that type of a percentage. But the only way you're going to make a stand, like my biggest stand right now is Marshawn Lloyd, who's what? I don't know. Let's see, where is he? 150 ADP. So it's what, a 13th round guy, 14th round pick, right? That's easy to get that sort of an exposure up there. 20th round, absolutely, right? It's easy to get that exposure, and that's what I mean. If you're going to take a stand like that, it's going to be on a late round guy. So if Michael Carter ends up being Kyren Williams, you're going to be printing money. That's for sure. So, and all it takes, well, all it could take is a James Conner injury, which is, I think we can all agree, fairly likely. Imani DiMercato was fantasy viable last year for like 4 weeks. give me Michael Carter over Imani DiMercato. That's Imani DiMercato for sure. One more pick in this draft. If there's enough interest, I'll do one more. Type something in the chat. Type yes in the chat. Type let's fucking go in the chat. I don't care. Type something in the chat if you want to do one more draft for tonight. It'll be my 145th bullet. 5 more. 6 more as it sits right now. But we're wrapping up the season, the early season. Rasheen Ali, I see pop up a lot. He's the type of guy I could see go to the Raiders. Dylan Laube, another guy I could see go to the Raiders. Bucky Irving, Will Shipley. A guy like that is going to get drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders, in my opinion. Blake Watson, my guy Blake Watson, who I might just take in this draft because unless I take Kamani Vidal, I might take Vidal. I haven't taken him enough. I have a few shares, but I would think I need a little more. Putt Daddy, run another since I'm probably done till the draft. Yeah, I got 6 more, then I'll be done. So I'll be done in a few days. Maybe by the end of like tomorrow, I'll be done. Super excited about this mock draft. Masters, super excited about the Masters. I'll probably be sitting, watching golf, rip a quick big board, finish it up, that sort of thing. Let's get this Kamani Vidal pick out of the way. Interesting runner. He had multiple 200-yard rushing games this year. You know, a guy that I really wish tested a little better, has zero buzz around his name now, and he's fallen super far, even lower than Blake Watson. Mind you, this is probably all from me, to be honest with you. Cody Schrader. I really liked Cody Schrader. I liked his tape. I liked his production in the SEC. That's for damn sure. But man, he just, he came up limp at the combine and had to, pull out. He didn't test exceptionally well. He's a bit undersized anyways. So I really just wish I saw more. I like him as a prospect, I suppose. And unless the landing spot is basically perfect, I don't know if we're going to get any value out of him. I do have some shares, but yeah, we'll do one more. We'll do one more quick draft. Let's go. Unless it doesn't fill super quickly. Waiting on 4, we should be fine. We'll do one more. I'd really like to get the 5th or 6th pick. I need to get more Justin Jefferson. I was talking him down not so long ago. I could have taken him 3rd overall there, but I think that's a little bit rich, to be honest with you. But I need to up my exposure to Justin Jefferson. Johnny Wilson. You like Johnny Wilson? Definitely, Dennis. Audible my last pick. I had Johnny Wilson in my queue. I'm not a Johnny Wilson guy personally. I really, he's obviously going to move to tight end. Yes, I 100% agree with anyone that says that. He has to move to tight end. He's going to be a big slot type of tight end, basically a wide receiver, similar to, again, Dalton Kincaid, guys like that, JT Sanders, whatever. He's not going to be a very good blocker whatsoever. I guess he ran fast enough, but man, he looks like a kid in high school who hit his growth spurt and he doesn't know how his fucking legs work properly. Like, he looks a little Bambi to me out there, if I'm being honest. Just when I watched film on Johnny Wilson, I really didn't like the way he moved. Like, it just looked awkward and it looked kind of lumbering and almost like labored. It just looked, it was exhausting to watch. You know what I mean? That's how I felt about Johnny Wilson. Like, just not a lot of juice whatsoever. So at least like those bigger tight ends that, have been in that body for their whole lives, they can still move well. I just feel like Johnny Wilson just doesn't move well. I don't like how he moves. Can I be completely wrong about that? You better believe it. I could be completely fucking wrong about that one. And I'll eat that if I am, but we'll see. We'll see. My other late round flyers were gone. Was Jacob Cowing gone? I like Jacob Cowing quite a bit. But you did have a ton of Arizona Cardinals, if I recall, right? And there's a pretty good opportunity that Jacob Cowing is going to stay in Arizona and be an Arizona Cardinal, much like Tank Dell. And that's another reason why I really like Jacob Cowing. He plays exactly like Tank Dell. He had very similar production, size, measurables, speed, everything's almost carbon copy to Tank Dell. And where did Tank Dell play? Houston. Where did he get drafted? Houston. Where is he crushing it right now? You got it. So Jacob Cowing went to Arizona, stays in Arizona. There's a lot of parallels there, a lot of similarities. So I like Jacob Cowing a lot. He's one of my more favorite type of late round flyers. But yeah, he was like, that's kind of how I felt. How I feel about Jacob Cowing was how I felt about Tank Dell. And take away everything I just said about how similar they are, just as far as watching tape and looking at production, I feel very similarly. And I'm taking them at a similar clip as far as where I'm drafting them and how much I'm drafting them. So the only thing about Tank Dell kind of killed everybody. Well, me, because I was very high on him. I was massively exposed as, he got hurt right before the playoffs. So I had a lot of teams in the best ball kind of playoffs and finals that had a dead Tank Dell spot, which really hurt because I was kind of, banking on that. So if you can hit on a late round pick like that, you're laughing as long as they're on the field, right? Which that one hurt. That one hurt a fair amount. I'd like to, see the alternate universe reality where Tank Dell didn't get hurt and see if I would have done well in a tournament. But it's how she goes. It's how she goes. But what else do we got? First round stuff. It's right there and it's almost there, but Garrett Wilson's going to finish up moving ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm personally taking Barkley ahead of Kyron Williams, that's for sure. So he probably continues to move up. Where are we at? 10 hole. That's not particularly where I want to be. That's actually, I was just thinking that the other day too. That's the one of the worst draft slots right now, in my opinion. Pick 9 and pick 10 are the worst, the absolute worst draft slots. I would take any other pick than 9 and 10. That basically, yeah, Puka, unless for some reason Amon-Ra's there. You can bring up AJ Brown, sure. I might just bring up Garrett Wilson in this one. I haven't taken him in a little while, and I had a lot of exposure. But we'll see where it kind of falls. Yeah, I think 9 and 10 are the worst draft slots possible. 31% on Michael Carter. Still a huge stand. That's a huge stand, to be honest. I've gotten better at not having massive exposures as far as like 40, 50% sort of thing. My highest exposure is like 31, 32, and I only have like 4 guys above 30%, something like that. So I've gotten better at spacing out my exposures. Realistically, 31% or 30%, 33%, is it 33.333% exactly what it is? But 30% is basically 50 lineups, 50 teams, 50 drafts, 50 pods where you have that player. If you don't have enough different exposures by 50 drafts, do you really need more? I really don't think you do, personally. That's kind of where I've been at with it. If you're maxing it out at 150 and you got 50 lineups with one player, I think that's enough. Even if I think that's a huge stand. That's an absolutely massive stand, in my opinion. Maybe people think differently than me. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's how I feel about it. So I've gotten better at that personally. Yes, you can be very right, I guess. Like, 40% of X player. If you had 40%, call it Kyron Williams last year, yeah, you're probably winning a fair amount, but it's a lot of risk. That's a lot of risk. It's less risk in that, like I said, in these drafts, 20 rounds, like Michael Carter, sure. Like, if you look at it in that kind of a way, they're kind of free. It's kind of 2 free picks, right? 2 free roster spots, Like, realistically, yes, the structure should be, your roster construction, should be a little bit different in these big boards than in the Best Ball Mania season, but not by an insane amount. And depending how you pick, like, again, 2 quarterbacks, if you have 2 quality quarterbacks, then you don't need a third. I don't care what structure you're in or what draft cycle, if it's big board 20 rounds or Best Ball Mania 18 rounds. If you have 2 quality, top 100 picks at quarterback or tight end for that matter, in my opinion, you don't need 3. So I'm going to pull up Garrett Wilson here. I've caught up on my AJ Brown stuff because I if you remember a few weeks back, I didn't have any, and that was a shock to me. So let's bring up Garrett Wilson here. Even though, like, if I were to have rankings, I would have AJ Brown ahead of Garrett Wilson. Pot Daddy agrees. 9-10 hole sucks. Hope you get more JJ and ASB exposure in BBM 5. Hope to get more. Sorry, JJ and ASB. Amon-Ra, St. Brown. I got a fair amount of Amon-Ra. Jefferson, I didn't get enough of. It's not that, like, I did move him down my rankings, and I probably should have taken him more in certain places, but at the same time, I didn't have those picks a lot. Like, I don't know how many times I had 5th overall, and 5th overall would have been the sweet spot for Justin Jefferson. It's just, if I was 3rd or 4th overall, it was just difficult. Might as well take Jahmyr Gibbs if he's falling. I'll take him. Gets a little bit unique. There's some uniqueness right there. Jahmyr Gibbs and Garrett Wilson. Mind you, 10, 12 turn, 11, 12, 13, 1-2 turn. You can get a lot of exposure to that, but it'll be a little more unique with me being in the 9 hole. I digress. Anyways, but Amon-Ra I have a fair amount of. I like the Lions this year. I really, with Callahan, or not Callahan, the fuck's his name? Ben Johnson? Is that his name? God, the offensive coordinator. I think it's Ben Johnson. With him coming back, that's massive for that team. And yes, they're going to draft, I think, a wide receiver. I don't think it'll be early. I would be surprised if it was in the first 3 rounds. They need corner. They need defensive tackle. They need a big body up the middle. And they need corners. Obviously, with Sutton going to prison, I would assume for however long. Who knows? He's cut anyways. So with him gone, they need some, and they were weak anyways last year. They're going to have to hammer corner, and they need a big body up the middle, in my opinion, and probably some help in the pass rush. So, with how I think they feel about Jameson Williams and with Jahmyr Gibbs there, I don't think wide receiver is a huge need, but I do think that they bring somebody in for sure. 4th, 5th, 6th round. I think they bring in a wide receiver that can come in and compete. That's for sure, but I don't think it's going to hurt anybody else on the Lions, even Jameson Williams. And then JJ, we'll see what happens in the draft here. I personally think the Vikings, I've been saying it for weeks, I think the Vikings are going to get locked out at quarterback. I just think they're going to get locked out with the Giants right there. And they're clearly targeting quarterback. They've been doing a ton of homework. It's certainly not smokescreen. You're not wasting that amount of resources on trying to, fool other teams or trick somebody. You're not. So I think the Vikings are going to get locked out at quarterback unless they like Michael Penix enough or Bo Nix enough to take him at, either 11 or 23, which is possible. But does that do anything for JJ's value? It stays the same. So again, if you're 5th, 6th, 7th overall in these drafts, if that's your pick, then yeah, Justin Jefferson pretty much all day. But I think if you're 1 through 4, it's tougher to take Justin Jefferson, in my opinion. That's kind of how I see it. 5 is I think he's the pick there. Mind you, I did say, and I still think that Amon-Ra is still a better pick than Justin Jefferson. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to that. But it depends on where you want your exposures and how many of these drafts you're doing. With the amount that I draft personally, I want to get an even amount of exposure. So realistically, my rankings don't particularly matter. What matters is getting enough of each player and enough unique builds with each player. So, a little 2 cents on that. My X username, definitely Dennis, is right on your screen. Can I get your X username? I can follow at Off the Schneid. I'll remove this right there at off_the Schneid. That's my X. I can still call it Twitter, and I'll probably always call it Twitter. That's my handle on there. Appreciate the follow. Appreciate it, man. What am I doing here? Could go Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, but I'm going to go Derrick Henry because I like taking running backs early, as I've said time and time again. And I have a lot of Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts. And this guy's going to take that stack. That's fine. That's very common. And again, maybe that's the stack that you need. Only 11 combined and 133 of both those players. That is light. That is certainly light. So, yeah, my recommendation would be Patrick Mahomes. What are you doing? Badgeless? Yeah. So there's the kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that we're seeing right now. What do I want to do? Don't want to take. That's fine if I do, but I'm definitely going to take a wide receiver. Let's go Cooper Kupp. I don't have enough Cooper Kupp. Yeah, that's light. With that's what I was kind of talking about with the, if you're drafting with volume, and I assume you have at least some little board or the little board 2 drafts, right? So it's probably more like 150. That's a shit ton of drafts. Like that's a lot of volume, right? Like that's more than most. That's for damn sure. That's way more than most in the early drafts. So So when you're drafting a volume like that, especially in the first round, like there might be one guy that you full fade sort of thing. And for me last year, that was Tony Pollard. I full faded Tony Pollard. There was no fucking way I was taking first round Tony Pollard. No way. And I didn't. And it worked out. Again, the Breece Hall, that was like third round Breece Hall. So maybe I should have taken more of him. But anyways, there might be like one guy. And realistically in the early big boards, I haven't full faded any first round pick. But when you're drafting volume like that, you gotta get away from your own rankings and your own kind of biases. You gotta leave room that you can be completely wrong. And I always say that. Leave room for you could be completely fucking wrong and not know anything that you're talking about. That's very possible. And anyone that doesn't admit that is I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Anyone can be completely wrong. You think the NFL teams get this shit wrong. NFL teams get this shit wrong all the time, every year, every single year, right? So yeah, we gotta take those biases out a little bit, but especially when you're drafting high volume like that, then you gotta take some exposure when you can get it. And I kind of made that mistake with Justin Jefferson too. That's what I was just saying. I'm right there with you. Everybody's susceptible to it. Everybody does it a little bit because it's a tough click. What did I just say? In the first 4 picks, it's very hard for me to click Justin Jefferson. Very hard. But I should have taken him more, right? So, yeah, I don't know I don't even know what my point is on this one. But if any of that makes sense, then there you go. That's kind of the way I feel about it when you're drafting volume. If you're drafting lesser volume, let's say you're only doing 50 total drafts over the summer, then take your guys and you can take some stands like that. You're going to have to, because you only have a certain amount of, total, call it equity. So you can't spread out your exposure. At least you really shouldn't, because you gotta draft like you're right. So, anyways, this is my kind of 2 cents or 10 cents on that whole thing. Full fade JJ early, QB consideration, reconsidered. Yeah, he's just that good of a player, right? And he did have like his yards per his yards per route run was still phenomenal. It actually was higher without Kirk Cousins. So yeah, he is, and especially because they're not a phenomenal team defensively. So anytime you have a very high caliber type of offensive player with a weak defense, that's one reason I'm drafting a shit ton of Buffalo Bills right now. I'm drafting a lot of Bills. Why? Because they have a fantastic offense. I don't care what their wide receivers look like. You have Josh Allen, you have a very good offense. Very good offense, right? And their defense is not going to be particularly good. So I think they're going to have to, play catch up a little bit and put up a lot of points. Not that they didn't already put up a ton of points, right? Because obviously they did. But now with that weaker defense, or at least what I perceive as a weaker defense, let's go with, I'm going to push Anthony Richardson, because these two teams have quarterbacks already. So if they want to take him, be my guest. Either way, I'll be taking him if he's there. If not, let's go Calvin Ridley or maybe Terry McLaurin. What was I babbling about there? Wow, he did take A-Rich. Interesting. Yeah, his yards. Sorry. Yeah, if you have a good offense and a bad defense, take a lot of those players, in my opinion. That's what I like to do. That's one thing I like to do. But that's nothing too secret. Everybody knows that for the most part. Wow, that's interesting. You took A-Rich. I wasn't expecting that. Let's open some doors for late in the draft and go with Calvin Ridley. Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see who they end up with. And to be honest, like Sam Darnold, I've actually always been a bit of a Sam Darnold believer. To be honest, he started a season 3-0 before he got hurt with the Carolina Panthers, and then he ended a season, not the same season, but he ended a season with the Carolina Panthers at like 4-1 or something like that. So the guy can actually play. And supposedly he's like the greatest practice quarterback that's ever, played, sort of thing. Like he looks like an absolute stud in practice, and then he gets out there in games and hears footsteps and sees ghosts and things like that. That's a direct quote. But anyways, Sam Darnold could just get there. Honestly, he's only 26 years old. Like, is there a massive difference? Is there a massive difference between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold? To me, no. Especially with a Kevin O'Connell run offense and just Kevin O'Connell being their period, former quarterback in the NFL. I like that situation. I think it's honestly on the table. And they said it so much recently because I think they know they're going to get locked out at the first 4 quarterbacks in this year's draft. And do you really think the number 5 quarterback is going to be the guy? Like, it's tough. That's a tough sell. The number 5, number 6 quarterback in the NFL draft this year is going to come in and just dominate your team in practice and just force his way onto the field. I like Bo Nix as, more than the next guy. But I don't think, honestly, what's the difference between Bo Nix and Sam Darnold? To be honest, give me Sam Darnold over Bo Nix because the age isn't that much different and they're more or less the same guy. And Sam Darnold has NFL experience. So, and I'm taking Bo Nix or Sam Darnold over Michael Penix in that offense, in that team, in that offense. Give me those 2 quarterbacks over Michael Penix. Not a huge Michael Penix believer. I'll admit that, full-heartedly, but I just don't think that he makes sense for that offense personally. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in this draft. It's going to get interesting. I think they get locked out. So unless they want to roll with Bo Nix, which I think they could, but I still think Sam Darnold starts over Bo Nix if the Vikings draft Bo Nix. I don't think CMC should be the first pick. I would rather have Lamb, Chase, or Bijan. Don't hate that take. Don't hate that take. It's pretty hard to repeat things like that. The sort of dominant production that CMC has had. It's pretty hard to repeat that year in and year out. So yeah, honestly, I don't hate that stand. Like if you want to take a stand and go, let's say you'll only, in your head, in your strategy, you're saying, I'll only take CMC if he falls to pick 3. If you're sitting there 3rd overall and it goes, Lamb, Chase, and you're sitting there and it's CMC, maybe you do take Bijan, obviously, like you just said. But, again, to mix in that exposure, you could say, I want to end up with, call it 5% or whatever CMC. So if I'm 3rd overall and he's there, I'll take him. That could be your stand sort of thing, which I'd be perfectly fine with. I'd be perfectly fine with a full fade of CMC if he's tipped, just 1st overall. Let's say you do say that in your head and I'll only take him 3rd overall and you never get him, which is entirely possible. I think I've gotten him once or twice, maybe 3 times tops in this whole, 175 essentially drafts that I've done. I think I've gotten him 3rd overall 2 or 3 times tops. So yeah, I don't hate that at all. I don't hate that at all. Like, yeah, that's a stand that you can certainly take. Like I said, it's hard to repeat, especially as many years as he kind of has gone. And just continue that domination, right? I think it's very difficult to pull that off. I think it's where I'm at, unless this guy takes Dak. I got to go Dak. He's looking at Kirk Cousins for sure, but doesn't mean you can't. Okay. So let's go Dak and bring it back with Jake Ferguson. That's something I really like to do when I'm taking, especially if I'm where I'm at here. If I have 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers, and I'm sitting here at the 7-8 turn like this, don't overthink it. Just take Dak and Jake Ferguson. There's not a crazy amount of wide receiver value here. I think Adonai Mitchell's moving a little bit up. I have a ton of exposure to Adonai Mitchell. I really, really like him as a player. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's getting pushed up a little high in his ADP here, basically because this is a bit of a wide receiver dead zone, right? And if you're not desperately in need of any sort of running back, then yeah, it's super easy to take Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson in these types of situations, which personally, I find myself in a fair amount. Um, and it just makes tons of sense. Makes tons of sense. And you can just go Dak and Jake Ferguson and just leave it there as a Dallas stack. You can bring it back with Jalen Tolbert. You can bring in Brandon Cooks if you want. But yeah, there you go. And the one thing I do hate about that, and the one thing I do hate about the Dak Ferguson being here, is I really like David Njoku. Don't get me wrong, I have a fair amount of exposure. I have enough, exposure to David Njoku, but I really like at this ADP personally. I think he should be a fair amount ahead of Jake Ferguson, not literally back to back like that. Like, honestly, it pains me a little bit to take Jake Ferguson over David Njoku, but obviously I have to here with Dak Prescott. Maybe you could get unique like that, or if you had CeeDee Lamb and you take Dak Prescott with him, you don't bring in Ferguson, then you can obviously absolutely take David Njoku. But that's just another one of those things, like I was talking about with Justin Jefferson earlier. It's just tough to click those guys sometimes, but you have to force yourself. You really do. And I have enough Jake Ferguson because I have a lot of Dak Prescott too, because it's so easy to do this sort of a thing. Especially if you have some NFC, which I do a little bit, Cooper Kupp, Jahmyr Gibbs, and that Dallas Detroit stack. Again, that was the nuts chalk that you had to have last year in BBM. So maybe that happens again this year. I doubt it, but sometimes we see the same. Look at Miami, Baltimore. They seem to always play in week 17, 16, definitely in the fantasy playoffs. Maybe they do again this year. We'll see. You do see people draft that game stack. Even now, this year, you see people draft the Miami Dolphins, Baltimore Ravens game stack like it's going to be in the playoffs, because it has been, for the last few years. The NFL is not stupid. They when they build the schedule, they're absolutely building it for entertainment, obviously, especially down the stretch. So chances are relatively high that there's going to be a divisional game in the fantasy playoffs, and then just a big game, right? Like we saw Chiefs Bengals a couple years ago. Detroit Dallas is one. What else did we see? Even Green Bay and Minnesota last year was a should have been, before the Kirk Cousins injury, should have been a big game. I was drafting that game a lot personally, and didn't really work out, but that was a game that I was focusing on. And what are you going to do? Injuries, man. Injuries you can't account for. So it is what it is. But where are we at with this draft here? Dak Prescott, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, Jake Ferguson. I do like this team. I like this one more than my last draft. Obviously, the door's open for Aaron Rodgers and Will Levis, who, if you've been following this channel, or if you've been watching Spike Week and hearing me in the chat, I've been talking about the Titans for months, well before this Calvin Ridley trade, well before anyone else, well before Tony Pollard came in. I was saying from day one, basically right after the Super Bowl, I just very confident. As soon as they signed Brian Callahan, as soon as they hired Brian Callahan, I was like, all right, I'm going to be overweight, fairly healthily overweight on the Tennessee Titans this year. And here we are. And now it's probably pretty prudent to be overweight a little bit. At least I think it is. I think they're in a good spot. So do I need quarterback here? Not really. I've also done a couple, bring in Justin Herbert, then you can bring it back with Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer, one or the other, or both. But not necessary. Mind you, that defense is pretty bad too. It's just a matter of, how bad is it going to be? And is Jim Harbaugh going to, let Justin Herbert do Justin Herbert things? I don't know. I think I need more exposure to Justin Herbert personally, but I'm not going to force him in here. But I think with that defense being as bad as it's going to be, I think Justin Herbert should be moving up these quarterback rankings a little bit. Mind you, there's a huge kind of, I wouldn't say dead spot. Where's Caleb Williams? 105 to a 109. I think he should probably, I don't know if I should say ahead of Tua. Maybe he's fine there, I guess. I don't know. I just think I need, maybe that's just another guy I need to purposefully get more exposure to and be, quote fingers upset with clicking his name when I have to. Let's go with a little Jacoby Myers action. This is another guy I like to force myself to click. It's not sexy at all. Keep talking up the Titans, bro. You've been watching this channel for a little while. I've been talking up the Titans for fucking months. Love me some Titans. Love the Titans this year. As long as everybody stays healthy, and if they can get Joe Alt, if the Chargers don't take Joe Alt, which is entirely plausible, Malik Neighbors, I think, is very likely a Charger. But if the Titans get Joe Alt, and everybody stays healthy, that'll be really, really sexy, in my opinion. That will look really, really nice. I think I definitely am going with running back here. It's one of these guys, one of these two. I don't think I have enough Zach Moss. Let's go Zach Moss here. Yeah. Love me some Titans. Ridley D-Hop Pollard. I don't think I probably do have some Levis with Tajay Spears as well. When I was drafting Tajay, thinking he was going to be, or at least they were going to bring in, a Braylon Allen type, a big body runner. I didn't expect them to bring in, more or less a clone of Tajay Spears in Tony Pollard. So, I have some good exposure to all of that. And then Chigakonkwo, I've got a fair amount of Chigakonkwo because you can bring him in super late. That was one of my favorite kind of things to do with the Titans when Will Levis was going later and Chigakonkwo was going where he still is now. You get usually it was DeAndre Hopkins before Calvin Ridley came in, but now it's either one, take your pick. And to be honest, I think it's pretty obvious that's what I'm going to be doing in this draft. You bring in D-Hop or Calvin Ridley, and then you get a late Will Levis and Chigakonkwo at a turn spot. You could probably space them out now with where their ADPs are at, but before they were very close together and you could just boom, boom, smash those two Titans, wrap up a double stack, and you're kind of laughing. And now with these running backs both being perfectly viable, it's just, there's a lot of options. Trey Burks, actually, I think, at the start of the show showed a little bit of exposure. I need to stop drafting Trey Burks because I think I'll end up at about 20%, which is probably a little heavy. But to be honest, if I'm the Titans, just give him a shot. He's going to be your third wide receiver, maybe not even your third option, but your third wide receiver. And, who knows? I think he could be more comfortable in the slot. I think that's probably where he'll excel, to be honest with you, unless they bring in, my only concern right this second with Trey Burks in Tennessee is if they bring in Tyler Boyd. Obviously, he comes over from the Bengals, knows the offense. He can teach, help teach wide receivers, and he can still get it down. He's like 29 years old, fantastic slot receiver. So if Tyler Boyd comes in, that will really, really hurt Trey Burke's value, really hurt it. So we'll see where that one ends up. But yeah, man, Titans, I'm all over the Titans. Have been. You heard it here first. And man, I really hope that they are the kind of team you need. That would be very nice for me. Very nice. And clearly you as well, Putt Daddy. So I dig it. I absolutely dig that. Basically my Eric Gray shares hinge on Devin Singletary. And we'll see. They're going to draft somebody too. It depends on how high. So I'm kind of hoping that they do end up trading up to 4th, which is a scenario I've talked about, once or twice, is the Giants trading up with the Chargers. Sorry, the Giants trading up with the Cardinals and then drafting a quarterback. And then the Cardinals are basically daring the Chargers to take Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think Jim Harbaugh will have a hard time doing. So, yeah, if I was a Chargers fan, I would say that my concern with Jim Harbaugh being the coach there now is that even if Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, he might not take him. That would be my concern because I think that he certainly should. But will he? I don't know if he will. I really don't know if Jim Harbaugh could physically allow himself to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I just don't know if he'll be able to do it. But we'll see. We'll see. Could go with Aaron Rodgers here on this with my second pick. I'll definitely go with a running back with what I got. I like my quarterback room. Sorry, my wide receiver room. I like my running back room too. But this is just a great spot to take running back. You got Chuba Hubbard, you got Jalen Wright, and it'll be Chuba Hubbard for sure. I like that. And then I will go Aaron Rodgers here. Obviously pair him up with Garrett Wilson. But the biggest reason I want to go Aaron Rodgers here is because I'll be taking three quarterbacks, 3 tight ends. So this is going to be a 3-6-8-3 for sure build. And I'll be taking, then that brings in Tyler Conklin. So there you go. Unless the Jets take Jatavian Sanders, which is possible. And to be honest with you, or Brock Bowers, which again is certainly possible. But I still think that would leave a little bit of meat on the bone for Tyler Conklin, even if it was Brock Bowers in there. But we'll see. And then in something like that, I could still bring in Jatavian Sanders. And if he lands with the Jets, wonderful. And if he doesn't, then that's honestly even better. But it kind of opens 2 doors, if you will. So like I like doing that a fair amount. I'll even do that with Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, bring in Brock Bowers. And then I had a draft the other day where it was, I brought in Rome Odunze with Garrett Wilson and Brock Bowers with Aaron Rodgers, thinking I'm going to get, chances are fairly high I'm going to get a double stack Jets there somewhere. We'll see if it works out, but I'm fairly confident the Jets will be drafting either Bowers or Odunze. And I think it's possible they trade up to do it, but we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, Joe Alt, who now I've been talking about this a fair amount on this channel too. The Titans didn't send anybody to the pro day, but they brought him in for a visit. So that kind of negates that. That's actually more of a telltale sign that they want to get a better look at him, get old Bill Callahan to work with him on the offensive line and see what he's all about. So yeah, now it's looking like it's in a good spot where the Titans would definitely take Joe Alt if he's there. I think that would do. I honestly don't think you could really overstate how much value that would have with that team, that offense. I think that if they could trade up for him, they should, if he's still there at 5th and the Chargers are there and the Chargers are willing to trade back, I would probably do that if I'm the Titans. I don't think you can overstate how much that would mean to that team, having a left tackle like Joe Alt on that team and that offense and that offensive line. I think that it's absolutely imperative. They absolutely have got to draft a left tackle, and he is head and shoulders the best one in this class, in my opinion. So if you have a shot at getting him, I think you got to do whatever you possibly can to make that happen. That's how I feel about it for the Titans and Joe Alt. I think they have to. They have to. There is no alternative. And we'll see if they do. We'll see if they do. But where are we at here? 154, 159. Definitely need another tight end relatively quickly. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I want Mayer with Jacoby Myers already on this roster. Cade Otton's on the table. I could just wait. I could just take 2. That's completely fine with Jake Ferguson. Bring in another, Jatavian Sanders, Noah Fant, or I'm going to bring in Tyler Conklin too. So those guys are all on the table. So I don't need tight end here. I think it's got to be wide receiver, because I'll be bringing in Will Levis. Wow, Will Levis has really risen. I'll have to bring him in right here in the 159. Does he have any Titans? No. Does have Pollard. I might just bring him in right here. There's no sense in mucking around with it and taking any chances where there's no one that's really like, I have to have that player. It just doesn't make sense to have to do that. I can take Ricky Pearsall. I can take Xavier Legette. I can take Braylon Allen. I can take Tyler Algier. I can take all these guys. But if I miss out on Will Levis, I'm going to be not super happy about it. So not that it's the end of the world either, but I'd really like to bring in this Tennessee stack. And it's not like I'm reaching 9 picks. That's really nothing. So especially at this stage of the draft. And there goes Legette. That was the only guy really that would have, made me think about it. Just because this guy only has one quarterback. He does have Tony Pollard. He could bring in Trey Burks. He could bring in Okonkwo. He could really throw a monkey wrench in my plan. So just do what you got to do while it's there. That's what I'm going to do. Could take Cade Otton here, but I don't think it's necessary. So really it's like this. Whoops. Oh, there goes Braylon Allen. Anyways, that's fine. Could definitely go with Algier. Arguably more important to get Algier, very arguably. Let's go. My exposure to Mims is a little high, but I really like him. I really like Marvin Mims, and his opportunity has gone through the roof with trading away Judy. And I don't think they're going to be in a position to bring in a wide receiver that is going to give him enough trouble and competition to kind of, negate all the expected value that I have with Marvin Mims. It's very possible that he's the wide receiver 1 on this team. Doesn't mean he's going to be, even a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. But with where he's going, ADP wise, 14th round, if I'm getting a wide receiver 1 on any team, that's another reason why I have a fair amount of Quentin Johnston. He has all the opportunity in the world to be the wide receiver 1 on the Chargers, depending on how they draft. If they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., scratch that completely. If they draft Malik Neighbors, I think it's less hurtful to Johnston than than Marvin Harrison Jr. would be, still extremely detrimental to Quentin Johnston's, fantasy value. But I don't think that that's really possible for the Broncos. So we'll see. We'll see. And they've basically already come out and said that they're going to get him the ball more, try to get him the ball more. And I believe it. I believe it. He flashed when he got opportunities. He just didn't get opportunities. And they full on admitted it. So I'd like to bring in some rookies. Not a single rookie on this roster yet. Not that that's a problem, but I do like to bring in rookies. And it's getting tougher and tougher to get them late. Again, Javon Baker, Jermaine Burton, they're going earlier and earlier. Malik Washington's kind of stayed stagnant where he was. But I would like to mix in some rookies here. So Jatavian Sanders might be a solid click in my tight end room to pair up with actually, what am I talking about? I'm just going to make it easy on myself and go Tyler Conklin, Chig Okonkwo. That's what makes the most sense here, obviously. Pair it up with my quarterbacks. Don't make it too difficult on yourself, Cody. But where can I take those guys back to back? Man, it's kind of right here. Woof. 202, 207. It's asking a lot. That's asking a lot. I kind of got to, if that's what I want to do, then I got to do it. I got to reach on them, Again, not that it matters at this stage of the draft. I just don't love to do it on tight ends. That does make it a little tougher. If you're reaching for a rookie wide receiver, a rookie running back that you really like, or, a guy that you think can have some standalone value as a running back or something, or, one of the better handcuffs, something like that, then I can stomach it. But it's tough to do that for a tight end, but I'm going to. I'm going to. Might as well. That's what I've kind of planned out for myself. And then I can bring in, I'll probably bring in Jalen Tolbert as well, just to finish out that Dallas stack. So I don't hate this team. I don't particularly love it completely, but yeah, I think it's got a good shot to advance. I'll say that. And then we'll see what happens when we get to the fantasy playoffs, unless the Titans just are that team, and the Jets. If the Titans and the Jets are what we hope they are, then this team could do some damage, but we'll see. A lot can happen and change between now and the start of the NFL season. That's for damn sure. So nothing is written in stone as we sit right now, except for maybe Tyler Conklin gets 87 targets. That might be written in stone. Might be. As long as they don't draft if they don't draft Brock Bowers, it might be written in stone. We'll see. Ray Davis is still there. I have a lot. He's, I think, my third most drafted, most exposed player, which I'm on the fence about whether I like or not. Landing spot is going to be crucial to that amount of exposure. Again, that means I have him on like 50 teams, which is a little heavy for my liking. But if he lands on, honestly, and I think he visited with this team, I feel like the Chiefs would be a good fit for Ray Davis, and he did visit with them. Team like Baltimore maybe be a good fit for Ray Davis. We'll see. He was just kind of athletic and tested just well enough for me to still be okay with him. If he ran like a 4.65, I would have had a much tougher time clicking his name. he got into the 4.5s. I think he was like 4.58, 4.59, something like that. So he got into the 4.5s. His size is good. Yeah. I loved his tape. That was the biggest reason. And he ran, and again, he tested just well enough. So there you go. After I click a Conquo here a little early, full round before ADP, not a problem. I'll be done at quarterback. I'll be done at tight end. Finish out the draft. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. We'll call it a day, and we'll get out of here. Hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Come back next week. Super excited. I got to put in a shitload of work this weekend for the mock draft next week on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. where I live. Really excited about the mock draft episode. It's my favorite episode every year. So I can't wait for that one. So we're running back, wide receiver. Where do we want to go here? What picks do we have left? 202, 207, 2631. 202, 207. Sometimes I like to just go through and just pound guys into the queue, even if I don't think I'll get them. Just fire them in there. And then take whoever's still there. Again, I want to get rookies because I have 0 on this team. So I kind of want to take 2 rookie running backs and 2 rookie wide receivers. It may or may not happen that way, but that's... So there you go. Jalen Hyatt is on the table for me. Damian Pierce for sure. Damian Pierce hasn't really moved up enough for me. If we think he's the direct handcuff to Joe Mixon, which I would think he is, at least for goal line duties, and that offense is in a much better spot now, obviously. I think Damian Pierce needs to move up a little bit, nothing crazy, but get into the 190s. I think he needs to move up at least a full round and a half, maybe. I think is where Damian Pierce needs to move up and land. But Tank Bigsby as well, for a guy that I've seen people have a crazy amount of exposure to, and my exposure is pretty high on Tank Bigsby. How is he still so low ADP wise? I don't really understand. Doug Peterson has said multiple times throughout the offseason that they need to get Tank Bigsby more involved in this offense. He was my running back 3 in last year's draft. I really like Tank Bigsby. So I'm going to keep drafting him. That's for damn sure. Not an incredibly massive believer in Travis Etienne. Don't mind him as a player. And yeah, the production's there. Pretty major injury history with the torn Achilles, the RB killer torn Achilles. Mind you, he's had 2 very quality seasons since, but I think there's room for Tank Bigsby to succeed in this offense, as long as he gets some opportunity. And typically Doug Peterson likes to roll with more than one running back. So to me, it's actually quite shocking that Tank Bigsby only got this as a rookie as far as, touches, 51 total touches. That's shocking to me. But we'll see. And again, he said multiple times, literally twice this offseason, that they need to get Tank Bigsby more involved in this offense. And I believe that. So I'm on board with drafting Tank Bigsby. Again, I have a fair amount of exposure, but I'll keep it going up as long as he's available in the, 17th, 18th, 19th round. I'll be taking. It's an easy click right there. Easy click for me. Beverage is empty. It's a sad time. The end is coming. The end of the night, the end of the draft, when the cup gets emptied. Man, these picks are taking a long time. A lot of 30-second picks here. This is getting kind of annoying. Trying to wrap this up here. But say la vie. It is what it is. What are we gonna do? Russell Wilson. JJ McCarthy's moving up. Obviously, draft community thinks he's going to be a top 5 pick. That's going to be he's so polarizing. So polarizing, JJ McCarthy. I did not think he was even a first round pick after the college football season. I didn't think he was a first round pick at all. And here we are. But again, as I always say, I could be completely wrong about that. Completely wrong about that. So, and I'm willing to admit that. So we'll see. We'll see if he goes 4th overall or 6th overall or 5th. Someone trades up to 5th. That's the most likely scenario where JJ McCarthy's a top 5 pick is someone trades up with the Chargers and takes them. So do I want to go Dameon Pierce or Tank Bigsby? I would like to go both. Both these guys have 5 running backs. Let's do Dameon Pierce. I'd be happy to take both these running backs. Jalen McMillan's sliding up draft boards quite quickly. I think it's because all these other rookies are moving up, and he's kind of the next name, the next man up. And with what he did in 2022, I guess I can understand it. For me, it's Jacob Cowing. Jacob Cowing's that guy. But Jalen McMillan's moving ahead of Malik Washington now, which, Jalen McMillan should be a slot receiver, I believe, in the NFL. And obviously, Malik Washington will be a slot receiver in the NFL. But honestly, I need to dig into Jalen McMillan more first. And at this stage of the game, with now 5 bullets left in the big board, I'm just not going to draft him. I have 0% exposure. I haven't drafted him once. And if he somehow crushes me, then so be it. But I do not think that that'll be the case. But it's just interesting how he's shot up super late in kind of the draft season, that he shot up so late. Like, take a guy like Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright was going around this area right here, 200s, 18th, 19th round. And he shot up. Now he's what, a 14th round, 13th round guy? I do end up getting both running backs, so that's nice. 13th, 14th round running back. There you go. So those are the days, getting Jalen Wright in the 18th round. Those were the days, man. I got as many shares as I possibly could at that time. So, and I'm still drafting them in the 13th round. Still drafting them in the 13th, 14th round. Drafted them all the way up, and I'll keep drafting them. That's for sure. So we're just going with 2 wide receivers to wrap up this draft. I've been talking about Jacob Cowing a lot. That's probably exactly who I'm going to take. Again, I want some rookies. I still don't have a rookie. It just didn't work out with the running backs, which is fine. But Jacob Cowing will 100% be joining the squad. It just makes too much sense to I have to take a rookie wide receiver here, I feel like. Especially with everything else that's here. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of like Greg Dortch. Yeah, but I have a fair amount of exposure to him. I don't need to force him in here. Oh, I guess, I guess I could go with Jalen Tolbert. I guess I have 2. So let's do that. Jalen Tolbert, Jacob Cowing, and we'll call it a night. I think that's what we're doing. Makes sense. There's no other rookie. Malik Washington, sure, but I'm not worried about my Malik Washington exposure. I have a couple Luke McCaffrey shares that I kind of wish I didn't even have, to be honest with you. He might be a guy next year. In a year from now, we might be drafting Luke McCaffrey, but right now he's still got to learn the position. Like, he's a former quarterback. Yes, he's Christian McCaffrey's little brother. That's a great pedigree. Ed McCaffrey's son, obviously, again, great pedigree, but he really just still needs to learn the wide receiver position. Realistically, it wouldn't have been a bad idea to go back to college and transfer to somewhere better than Rice and, have one more year of playing wide receiver under his belt in college. But at the end, he goes to an NFL team. He's going to get drafted probably, I would say like 6th round, maybe 5th round. I think he might get drafted, maybe a little higher just on name value. But if he goes somewhere where he can just learn and maybe practice squad even, or I think he kind of, maybe he could be your 5th wide receiver sort of thing, but mostly learn the position, watch film like crazy, practice, learn the position, then yeah, we might be talking about Luke McCaffrey next year. But I just don't see it for 2024. I just don't see it personally. He still needs to learn what he's doing. But being a former quarterback does give him a bit of a leg up on it. Plus, he's tough as nails. But we'll see. We'll see about Luke McCaffrey. Brendan Rice, I didn't like his tape whatsoever. I was not a fan of Brendan Rice, watching his film, especially with the caliber of quarterback that we think that Caleb Williams is. If Caleb Williams is that guy, then Brendan Rice should have been a lot better, right? So he wasn't very good. His production wasn't amazing. His stat profile wasn't great. His testing numbers weren't fantastic. And his tape just didn't look good to me. I didn't like the way he looked as a player personally. And I have 0% Brendan Rice. I'm not a big believer there. So again, when we get to this stage of the draft, if I'm looking for a rookie, it's going to be Jacob Cowing. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out for me. Anais Smith, not for me whatsoever. Didn't like him. Taj Washington, I have a little bit of shares of. As much as I didn't like Brendan Rice, I really don't mind Taj Washington. Obviously a little undersized. And with his tape got hurt by the amount of scrambling and just hero plays that Caleb Williams was trying to do last year. And being 5'8", he's not, the guy that you're going to see when you're scrambling around back there as the quarterback and you're looking for an open wide receiver or a quasi-open wide receiver. You're not going to see little 5'8" Taj Washington running around too much. So I think he kind of got hurt by that. So I like Taj Washington more than I like Brendan Rice personally. But we'll see. We'll see where he gets drafted. Landing spot's big for both those guys. Landing spot and potential opportunity. But I think the potential opportunity lies more with Taj Washington than it would with Brendan Rice. I could be completely wrong about that, but that's how I feel about it. I think it'll be easier for Taj Washington to get on the field, given the position that he plays as a slot, than Brendan Rice as an outside, X type wide receiver. I do not see those traits with Brendan Rice. So I think it'll be more difficult for him to get on the field, personally. One more pick, and then we're out of here. Thanks for sticking it out with me. Long episode. This is the last draft episode, so I wanted to get at least 2 in for you guys. We'll be back next week. Maybe I'll do an episode, but it's Masters weekend, so I probably won't be able to get to it. But maybe we'll do 2 next week. I'll probably do 1 before the mock draft on Wednesday. So maybe on a Tuesday, I'll do a quick rundown of what I think my team needs are for the NFL draft here. And then we'll do the mock draft on Wednesday. Super duper excited about that. So thanks for sticking it out with me this long for this long ass episode. Hopefully you got some value out of it, some nuggets. But there we go. That's it. So the final team on the second draft of the night: Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Will Levis, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Zach Moss, Chuba Hubbard, Dameon Pierce, Tank Bigsby, Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Hollywood, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, Marvin Mims, Jacob Cowing, Jalen Tolbert, Jake Ferguson, Tyler Conklin, and Chig Okonkwo. There's the team. There's the draft. Appreciate you guys sticking with me. Pipe Daddy, looking forward to it too, man. Come out and join the chat. Say what's up. Should be a fun episode. I'm super excited about it. Hit that like button on your way out. Appreciate you guys sticking out with me all night tonight. Like I always say with Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right. Hopefully tonight we were right, and we'll see you next week.